morning. Since now we are all here and we can start the meeting.
So, welcome, Woody. Can you hear us, Woody? We can't, okay, you're muted. Okay, am I muted? No, I'm not muted. Okay,
You're good.
all right, so I did send the agenda to our two members. Did you get them by email?
Let me see. I saw your. I'm sorry. I was running so late, and I have not been.
Anyway, so we're gonna call the meeting to order at 6:35.
5:35.
5:35, sorry. And we have all of our members here because we only have 3 members now because Leslie Anderson resigned over the month for some reason. We don't know why. But anyway, so she's no longer a member. So I did you get to review the minutes, Woody and Shane?
Yes, I'm good.
Woody?
Yeah, the only quarrel is my misspelling of my name.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. Okay. Okay, so all in favor of accepting the minutes, raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay.
Gosh, it's so much fun to vote.
Okay, did you get a chance to look at the calendar for the next year? It was posted on the website.
I think it's fine. I think that's what we've been doing. Except, whoa, wait a minute. Did it include that we're going to be doing it every month now? Is that
Yes.
okay? Great. Yeah. As long as that's the version we're doing, I am 100% behind that.
The second Tuesday of every month.
Yeah.
Now.
So if it's going to continue to be by Zoom, I'm asking because I'm about to disappear
I
from
know.
Preston for a number of months,
Yes.
going to a warmer place.
Yeah.
And if I can't stay in touch by Zoom, I'm going to be out of it. I'll certainly read the minutes and everything.
Surely we're going to continue to implement Zoom for all town meetings for the near future, right?
Yeah,
Michelle?
I have a question for you all. So the policy of the town is for all meetings to be hybrid. So if you want to go in person, you can, but there should always be an online component, which I highly suggest as we go into the winter, whether it's for COVID or for travel or for whatever. But we are one of the only commissions that has been exclusively Zoom because Jocelyn was working with us and stuff. So on the calendar, it says hybrid. I just wanted to know what everyone was kind of thinking about.
That's a good point. I had a similar thought of that this morning, and then I forgot to write anything about it. But my thought was like, do we still need to have one of the commissioners in the room with the owl in order to make that like more open so that people can come to the meetings, or is keeping it exclusively on Zoom? You know, it seems to me like we should, like, one of us should be there, right? I mean, like, in case people want to come, that maybe.
Yeah, I know that Janet Hill wanted to come.
Right.
And, she has a difficult time, doing technology from her home.
Right, exactly. People like that, and she's not the only one in town that I think we need to. So I would say, like, moving forward, we should make it sure that at least one of us, if possible, is there in the room, right?
If I'm running it, I can certainly run it from downstairs instead of up in my office. And for my last EDC meeting, I was the only one there. I mean, it's easier for me actually up in my office because the Wi-Fi down there is a little funky, but we're trying to work on that. So for accessibility, I support being hybrid, and I can go down there and you all can Zoom in, and if somebody wants to show up, they can.
Okay, that sounds awesome. Thank you.
Will we all agree that that's what we'll do? We'll do hybrid, and at least one of us will be there with Michelle.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. And I'll volunteer. If I'm around that week, I will be there.
Excellent.
Okay. So, all right. New business. I did send you a copy of the financials that were sent to me.
Yeah.
Did you get them? Did you look at them?
Yeah, I think I have a lot of questions.
Yeah. And I'm going to share.
Oh,
You
thank
guys-
you.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. This is the balance sheet, and then we can go to the other budget as well. I did talk to Linda Gomez and Linda McGar, both about the housing budget, and pulled up some of the ordinances and things. So I'll do the best I can with questions. And if we have any more questions, I'll make sure I find out from Linda and Linda.
I have a question about the housing assist in those names. What does that mean? That's each 10,000.
So those are the 6 people that we have done the down payment assistance program
Okay.
for. So if you want, I can just sort of walk you through this balance sheet a little bit.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not super long, but if you start at the top, it shows where the checking savings account, where it's being held.
Yeah.
If you look at the CD has the housing assist program, you'll see the balance of the $100,000 that was put into the down payment assistance program. So there's $40,000 left to assist people. And traditionally they've been assisting with $10,000 at a time. So then after that, you see the balance of the checking and the CD. So really, if you drop down to the bottom, total liabilities and equity, there's $270,890 in the account. However, 100,000 of it is either earmarked or is actually out on loan. It's considered an asset because it's a loan, it's not a gift or a grant. So those down payment assistance loans are to be repaid when the house sells.
Right.
So,
Right.
if you subtract the 100,000 out, there's $170,890.39 in the account for the purpose of helping with affordable housing. And just one of the things I was thinking, I got my hands on the ordinance from 2006 that established the Affordable Housing Fund, which outlines everything that it can be used for. And I was going to scan that in and mail it to you, but I think what I'll do is I'll put it on the website so that it's clear exactly what we can use, that money can be used for, and what the process is. And actually, I do at some point, not today, but in the ordinance, it says that any appropriation in excess of $5,000 shall be forwarded to the Board of Finance for their consideration, and if approved by the Board of Selectmen, the Selectmen shall then take it to a special town meeting. And we went through that process last year when we awarded $10,000 to the Housing Trust so that they could do some environmental studies to apply for the grant.
Yeah, special, right, yeah.
Yeah, I would suggest maybe raising that limit so that we don't have to go to a town meeting, whether 10,000 is the right amount or what that is. But the intent is to be able to to let somebody do some perks tests, or, whether it's the Housing Trust or the Housing Commission, trying to figure out if a lot is suitable for affordable housing. 5,000 just doesn't get you very far anymore. So,
it really doesn't.
But we don't have to change that now. That would just be a suggestion for the future.
That's something we would have to take to a town meeting, I suppose, or.
Probably,
So
yeah.
how that reflects the basic reason the ordinance created this account in the first place for those kinds of expenses.
Yeah, so let me get my reading the light in here is not bad. So So it says expenditures from the fund shall be made exclusively for the costs associated with the investigation, appraisal, acquisition, administration, fees, and maintenance costs related to parcels of land, both improved and unimproved, or development rights, easements, deed restrictions, options, interests, or rights therein, the use of which shall be limited to retention or designation of parcels for their long-term use in providing affordable housing. So that is what the money was put in there for. I think
Okay.
the threshold, the $5,000 the threshold was, the town doesn't want the housing commission or the town to purchase housing or purchase land without their input. But I think the cost of doing some of these preliminary investigations has gone up enough that the 5,000 threshold really impedes. Like, we had to really call a special meeting to get that $10,000 environmental study money approved in time for the grant application. Because by the time you go to Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen and then a town meeting, you know, it can take several months.
Right.
Well, in order to have that changed, Michelle,
Mhm.
what would be the process?
I mean, can we make an addendum that this needs to get approved by the Board of Selectmen instead?
That's a good question. I think if the decision is made to change that, since it's a town ordinance, I think it would need to go to the Board of Selectmen, who would then bring it to a town meeting. But
Right.
they could, since there's nothing urgent on the docket, they could hold on to it until there's a town meeting for something else as well. So if there's a town meeting for some other purpose, they could add it to the agenda instead of calling a special town meeting just to raise that limit. But we would have to ask the Board of Selectmen. I think that's how that would go. I don't think you can amend a town ordinance without going to a town meeting.
Okay. Does that mean that we should move forward with contacting the Board of Selectmen about how to move that forward in terms of setting that up? I don't know how to go. How do
Well,
we do that?
I personally think that the best way to move forward would be to put that on the agenda for the next meeting so that it's posted, because it's not on this agenda. And then the Housing Commission could formally make a motion, formally approve it, to pass it along to the Board of Selectmen. But I think it should be, that should be posted on a public
Our
agenda.
January meeting, we'll talk about that and decide.
Okay.
what to do.
That's a
Okay?
great idea. I'm sort of, I have a question for you, Michelle, as it relates to this particular document in terms of like, these are essentially our expenses, right? But like,
No,
no.
there are no expenses. These are assets. The other
Oh,
one
okay.
is the profit and loss. So this is the balance sheet. These are
All right.
monies that are carried forward year after year.
Right.
And interestingly enough, $25,000 was requested to be added to this year's balance. Linda Gomez says it was. I need to pull out last year's budget, or last year's balances just to verify that, because I don't see an in or out. Leslie was under the impression that it was earmarked for the down payment assistance program, but Linda says it was not. And since Linda is our financial manager, I don't know, I forget her official title. That's how those monies were moved. So $25,000 was added to this in this fiscal year, which Leslie requested to the selectmen put in the budget. And that is one of the things, I believe it was in the affordable housing plan. We should review that, but we should make sure when the budget requests go in for next year that we request again that monies be put into the housing fund, because this is the fund that we can use to assist the housing trust buy land. For example, one of the last times money was used from this was to purchase the Vincent property, along with state grants and other grants. The town put forward some money, so that's what these monies are used for. Just on a side note, and I pulled the minutes of the meeting from 2014. The down payment assistance program $100,000 was earmarked for that program at an annual town budget meeting in May. Because the down payment assistance is not officially part of one of the things listed for the ordinance establishing the housing fund. So if at any point we need to add more money to the down payment assistance program, we will need to bring that. I'll have to find out if we need to bring it to a town meeting or if we bring it to, it has to be the budget meeting.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
seems-
It's kind of,
yeah,
it's
that
kind of
seems really
confusing.
important.
Yeah. So we have 40,000. So there's
Right.
four more people can come forward. That should, lately it's only been 1 or 2 a year. So that should last a little bit. However, as we'll talk about later in the agenda, one of the goals of the Affordable Housing Plan is to promote that program. So we
Right.
need to be ready to figure out how to get more money in there if we need it.
Indeed. Going back to what you said about the 25K that was added, but there seems to be some discrepancies about what it exactly is for. What did the lady from the town think it was for? I'm sorry, I forgot her name.
Linda.
Linda.
she
What did
just-
Linda
she's-
think it was for?
It went into this balance here.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
included in the 270. It just wasn't earmarked for the down payment assistance.
Okay.
So
But
it's
that's what we-
available.
Okay.
And I think Linda's point was that has to happen through a different mechanism.
Right.
Like it has to be, the earmark can't just be because Leslie requested it, has to be like outlined in the town budget meeting or something.
I think that's great to know. I'm sort of curious about how this all works because I don't really see. I don't know. It seems a little disorganized, to be quite frank.
It's confusing and a little unclear. And I think I've been trying to figure it all out. And as I do, I'm going to share whatever I learn with you. And I think part of moving forward, it will be clarifying a lot of this.
Cool.
Michelle, so you're saying that our commission could not decide to use that 25,000 to add to that down payment assistance?
I believe it would need to go to a town meeting. I will double check. I will check how exactly we move money into that.
I mean, one thing that sort of strikes me in this as well is that we're still offering $10,000 to people to buy houses. When I bought my house like 8 years ago, that was $10,000, and things have drastically changed. And I don't know if should we not readjust that number to reflect some sort of reality?
Well, that's a good question. And I have a couple of calls. I think at this point is fine on the agenda to talk about the Housing Development Fund, which they're the people who manage the vetting of the down payment assistance program for us. And I've been on their website. I watched their tutorial video. I have calls into 2 or 3 different people to just talk to them about the process, because again, we want to promote the program. So I wanted to really figure out how it works. And so I think that would be a good question for them. Is 10,000 still?
Well, my question is, why are they the ones doing it? I mean, I also disagree with their whole using the median income as well, because I feel like that doesn't really apply to us. A family of 4 making, $75,000 a year cannot afford a $300,000 home. I mean, I don't think, with a deposit and all that stuff. So I don't know why are we sort of letting this other organization set those terms? I don't know. Maybe it's a part of the stipulation for the, for the monies or something. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Well,
it seems like we should be able to handle it more in-housey.
Yeah.
I'm not, that's interesting. I think before we say that, maybe we should speak with them.
Okay.
I went through their website, and I think it's a good program. And they also have some other funds, other down payment assistance programs that you can tack on to ours. So one of them was, it's a state program, and I forget what it was called exactly, but it's basically work where you live where you work.
Live where you work. Yes, that was another thing I also tried to do as well.
Yeah, so live where you work. I think is it 80% of the area median income?
It's 80% of the, yes.
qualify?
Yes.
Okay, so I wasn't sure if it was that or because the CHAFA, I think CHAFA, which is the Connecticut Housing
Yeah.
something fund,
Yeah.
which loans I think CHAFA loans up to $350,000.
I know.
And
It's,
like
it's not about
Okay.
whether or not people can get the money. Are we then setting them up for success or for failure? You know, especially in our sort of commitment. I don't know. I think the more help we can give people, the better.
I agree.
So if I may add a comment, Judy?
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
So the CHAFA, which is a Connecticut Housing Finance Authority, they, for Washington, I think they will loan up to $317,600, something in that range. They do have a down payment assistance program. I haven't paid that much attention to it, but I think it's actually rather limited, more like the 10,000. Maybe they've changed it, but I don't think so. So I'm going to make one suggestion, which is that they're two separate levels. If you take the median income and then you take the 60% or the 80%, that will allow you to afford a certain price. And I think those are closer to like $165,000 and $195,000 for a home.
Doesn't exist here.
If you can afford the $317,000 home, I don't know exactly where your income level falls on the median income, but I think it's more like 120 or 125%. What that does for the town is it gives the town a point towards, the affordability. Right now we have, I believe, 43 affordable rentals and homes, which is a combination of everything from deed restricted like Myfield, or government finance like Brinsmade Lane, or CHAFA mortgages. But anyway, so I think maybe what I'm hearing from the commission is they may need to sort of look at the information in the affordable housing plan, which is, from my perspective, great because it creates some black and white information. This is what the median income is for Washington, Connecticut. Here's what 60% is. Here's what 80% is. Here's what a family with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 members is allowed to or can spend for rental incomes or purchase. And then I think you will back into what I think Shane's raising, which is, are these numbers even realistic in Washington, Connecticut, right?
Right. That's a good point. And I think to Shane's point, the 80% of the area median income is capital A affordable, which Chris is correct. Depending on the size of the household, that's a house that's around 180,000, give or take, around here. But if CHAFA loans up to 317, there's a gap of 100,000 there. And we want to make sure that people that are making just above the 80% area median income can still qualify, because it's still challenging, right? I think that's what you were trying to get to, Shane.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't qualify like during our process for any of this stuff, although the research was helpful and did sort of pique my interest about, getting more involved. But it was sort of like, oh, you're just outside of that. Sorry.
Right. So that's a question. I have some questions that I was going to ask when I was reaching out to the Housing Development Fund. And that's another question I'll ask, if the difference between the 80% area median income and qualifying for CHAFA, there's a gap there. And if they're participating all the way up to the Chaffas 317, well, then that's great, because that's kind of what that missing the small A affordable. We want to help those people as well, because that's also a challenge in our town.
Okay.
So the challenge is actually having the housing stock that is at those price points.
Yes.
Right. Well, yeah. Which.
So Michelle, you also sent 3 other profit and loss. Profit and loss budget first. Do you wanna
Yes.
Are you going to go over those?
Sure. Let's take a look at that. That one's pretty easy. Let me just pull up the right one. It's not in green. What are you seeing?
Same Zoom. It says
You're
Zoom.
seeing Zoom. Okay, let me stop that. I tried to switch the page. Why is it not choosing it? Come
Oh,
on.
it did. No, it did. It showed it.
Oh, it did? It didn't outline it in
Profit and
green.
loss budget versus actual.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay, you're seeing it. Okay, good. So, I think it's sharing my whole screen instead of the document. That's why it's not outlined in green. So this one's pretty easy because it's so small, which is another thing that I think we should talk about for the budget request. So the budget for this year for the Housing Commission, so this is just like operating budget, not the big pot of money that rolls over year after year, is budgeted $250 for miscellaneous and $599 for board and secretary fees. I don't know why $599, but that's what it is. We've spent $100 so far under miscellaneous, and that was for the membership in the Northwest COG Housing Council, which I would highly support. That they're incredibly helpful. That's the council that Jocelyn was in charge of and has asked to continue with in her new position. And then the $55.83, I guess, must have gone to Leslie for taking minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll ask. I don't know if there were any other fees. I thought I had asked, but they didn't tell me. So that's,
I mean, can we see a report run of all the expenses from like, I just like miscellaneous? What does that exactly mean? I know it means like miscellaneous, but like,
yeah, no, that's what they called it. Well, and my suggestion to the Housing Commission, and we can obviously work on this at future meetings, but would be to request a little bit more money, because some of the initiatives of the Housing Commission in the Affordable Housing Plan are to promote and communicate. So, having a little bit of a line item to do some printing of some brochures, for example, or a postcard. I mean, we can run articles for free in the newsletter, and we can put things in the selectman's email, but having a little bit of money to work with on printing or outreach of some sort, maybe a banner or something for an event, whatever the commission decides they want to do. So there's just not a lot of wiggle room in this budget.
When is the budget drawn up for the following fiscal year? This spring?
Yeah, actually earlier than you would think, because the meetings with the selectmen, I believe, usually start early February. So January, you start putting your budget together. So the selectmen meet in February because they have to approve it, then move it to the Board of Finance, which happens in March or April, and then it goes to a town meeting in May.
So essentially in January, we need to have our budget ready.
Pretty much February by the latest, but January we should be talking about it, having some
I think
ideas.
if we want to do any sort of additional funds to our budget, we should start to bring that to their attention sooner rather than later.
All right. So in January, we're going to have that on the agenda also.
Yeah, I think so. I think we gotta.
Yep.
I agree.
Okay.
And Shane, good question. I'll find out, I asked about that $100. I'll find out about the 5583, but
You know, I mean, because like, you know, when in the past when I've dealt with budgets and such, and you know, like when you dig down into the actual expenses, sometimes you can find silly stuff that you're spending money on. Like perhaps we have a, you know, perhaps in this miscellaneous $100 is, you know, our AOL membership. Or you know what I mean? Like maybe, like I don't know, maybe we should just take a look at it and see what those expenses actually are. I think that'll also help with our budgeting process because then we can identify things that we should increase or decrease based on the actual line item on the paper.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree. And I'll find out more about the whole board and secretary fees. What
Yeah, and I
exactly-
mean, you know, Chris sort of brought that up earlier, but and you know, I think the fee, if there's a fee being paid or there's a fee available, perhaps that's, you know, how we can have somebody be a part of this committee, you know, to take notes and stuff like that, or it should go to the person who's actually doing the work. You know what I mean? Like it would seem like
Right.
if there is budget to have somebody do that work, then we should certainly pay them to do the work and then they should do the work.
Agreed. Agreed. So I will inquire a little bit more about that. But yeah, thinking as we go on in the agenda and talk about the housing plan. Oh, which reminds me, the housing plan, the final copy, I had the you know, approved version. I had 50 copies printed. Jim Britton approved that expense, but we didn't take it from the housing budget because there's so little money. I forget where he took it, where they found the money for that. But anyway, we had 50 hard copies made. I brought a few to the library. There are some sitting here. I distributed them to the zoning commission and the planning commission. Hard copies were given to them. I think Judy mailed you guys copies.
Well, I was going to mail them. I didn't get around to it.
Oh, you don't need to mail me one, Judy. I have one from Michelle's stack.
Oh, okay.
Yay, somebody found them. We're
Yeah.
trying. So anyway,
Send you one. Okay.
so I just wanted to share that, you know, we did that. I forget how much it cost. It was like $200 because it's kind of long. It's color on both sides. So that's kind of what made me think about maybe we need a little more of a line item for
For
outreach.
printing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and the other two pieces where profit and loss budget versus actual, a percentage, I mean, it's not a big deal. What would the professional fees of 3,220, that was for
Probably Jocelyn, I would imagine, right?
Jocelyn?
What are you talking about, Judy?
Well, you gave me two other
Profit and loss sheet.
profit and loss sheet where December 1st to the 7th. Professional fees, consulting.
I must have missed, maybe I didn't see that page. Let me just pull it up.
Oh, your email's on the screen, Michelle.
Thank you. I was looking for when Linda sent all the stuff. Judy, you sent it out? Maybe I missed the second page. Did you send it to me?
I don't think I sent it to you because you sent it to me.
That's what I thought.
Anyway.
Anyway.
What is the 3,220? That was for Jocelyn.
So we got a grant for 14,000 and change from the state. And then we engaged Jocelyn through the COG to walk us through the development of the affordable housing plan. So yeah, almost 100% of that went to the COG, which it was the consulting.
Right.
Okay, good. Okay. So, yeah, so next month, we're going to talk about the next year's budget and getting some more money for us out of the town budget. So on to the next issue, which, Michelle, you went to that conference and you were going to report on that. The CCM conference.
Yes. So let me just get my papers together here. So I went to the CCM conference, which is the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, and they had a workshop, which is called Update on Affordable Housing and Land Use Legislation. And it was fascinating, but I will tell you, it was the speakers were 2 land use attorneys, and the room was full of zoning people. And I wrote a lot of stuff down. It was a lot of it was new to me. But what I think is really important is what they were talking about is Public Act number 21 through 29. And it's an act concerning the Zoning Enabling Act, accessory apartments, training for certain land use officials, municipal affordable housing plans, and a commission on Connecticut's development and future. It went into effect October 1st of 21, so just 2 months ago. And municipalities have until January 1st, 2023 to bring their zoning regulations in line with this Public Act. So I printed out the Public Act. It's 28 pages long.
I'm sorry, can you tell me that act number again? Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah,
catch that.
21 through 29. Looks like this.
Copy you, 21 through 21.
I can actually probably send you a PDF of that too. So what's interesting, there are a couple and they talked about this a lot in the workshop I was in, but I didn't have the framework, the context to know what exactly they were always talking about. But I'm just gonna highlight a couple of things that are in here. It says that your housing regulation or your zoning regulations must provide for the development of housing opportunities, including opportunities for multifamily dwellings consistent with soil types, terrain, and infrastructure capacity for all residents of the municipality and the planning region, blah, blah. And then another one says, the regs must promote housing choice and economic diversity in housing, including housing for both low and moderate income households. And then another provision, number 6, it says they must expressly allow the development of housing which will meet the housing needs identified in the state's consolidated plan for housing and community development, prepared pursuant to section 8-37T. I don't know what that is, so I have to look that up. So there are several mentions here of diverse housing, multifamily, et cetera, et cetera. I asked Shelley if zoning was talking about these regs, and she said no.
No.
So she suggested that the Housing Commission take a look at this and that we maybe work with planning as well. And that we work with the COG, because I'm sure everybody is working on this because
Yeah.
we're not experts and we don't have any money in our budget to go to the land use lawyer and say, hey, help us craft some regs that will meet these state laws. There's somewhere in here, I did see it, I don't remember if I highlighted it. It said, if you're not compliant by January 1st of 2023, your regs are null and void, the ones that are in opposition. Yeah. So we should start getting
Yowza.
familiar. We should start getting familiar with this. I think there's some things in here that are very much in alignment with the affordable housing plan we just did. But I
Right.
need to read a lot more. I don't know what the state's plan is that it was referring to. I don't know. There's some language about being able to opt out of some of these things, but I don't know which ones you can and can't. And I don't know if zoning would choose to do that or not. So like I said, it's 28 pages. There's a lot to learn, but I think there might be some useful information here. It also does require that all zoning, I think planning too, Shane,
I'm on both those committees.
are gonna be, oh, that's right. Are you an alternate on zoning?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. Well, you're gonna get to do a lot of
Probably, yeah.
continuing ed, my friend.
Well, that's why I'm shocked that this thing's come out and we haven't been talking about it.
Yeah. So right here it says,
There was a long article in the New York Times Sunday, this past Sunday, in the real estate section. The headline was "One Lot, Two Homeowners." And they referred to, I think, this very same legislation, which has been passed in Connecticut as well as New Jersey and some other states. And it's all brand new. They talked a lot about Princeton, New Jersey, which is another pricey place to live,
Oh yeah.
and maybe even more so.
Oh yeah.
But toward the end, it sounded a little more friendly. I mean, for instance, stepping down to a smaller residence by elderly people who want to retain ownership of their house, might, have a garage improved and move into it, and then sell or lease the main house to someone younger and larger family who could use it.
Yeah.
Well, that certainly falls within our. some of the
So
things that we-
what's interesting is there were quite a few pages of this act about accessory dwellings. And I kind of skipped them because we already allow them. We allow a detached, we allow an attached and a detached. And we haven't really, it hasn't really shown to help our affordability. I mean, it helps with
Not in
some
our area.
diversity, but it's not the holy grail of affordable housing. And they've talked about that a fair amount, and they've talked about it at the COG too. Like, everyone was hoping that that would really help a lot. And yeah, sometimes maybe people have their nanny live there or a caretaker or something. So it provides housing for somebody at a different income level, but we already allow it. So I kind of skipped all that, but we can certainly look at that. I know it was mentioned in the affordable housing plan that we just approved.
Yeah.
But since we allow it, I didn't read through those
No, I
sections
didn't
very carefully.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Judy, could I add something?
Sure.
Hello?
Go ahead, Chris.
We hear you.
Thank you. So I saw that article that Robert refers to. It's a great article. The thing that stood out for me was exactly what he pointed out, which was that somebody could basically sell what we would have normally called an accessory apartment. And I'd suggested some zoning regs to zoning that basically would give the small property owner, somebody who has just one building lot with one home, the ability to create some affordable housing, but also to maybe make some money so that they have the income to stay, or some money in the bank to stay in the home that they've lived in their whole lives. So I think there's some great opportunities here. The thing also that I picked up on, because I actually tried to labor through 2129, there's a lot there that's about sustainability, that's about clustering housing, about putting 4 homes on one building lot. And typically you need like town water and town sewage to do that. But I've actually got something that I've shown the selectmen where we've got 6 houses proposed on one building lot with their own wells and their own septic. So there's a lot of good stuff in the Public Act 2129. And I think on some levels, it's not about regulations and all the good articles. It's about us figuring out how somebody could actually take the regulations and actually realize a house. There are a lot of people that just need a hand in figuring out how to do it. And when you look at what it costs to get a permit, and the engineers involved, or maybe an architect, whatever, that can really drive the cost of a home up. We have the ability to do it. It's just, so anyway, so thank you.
So Michelle, is that it for that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we'll keep looking at it. I'll try to get some advice from the COG. I'm sure everyone's looking at it. And like Chris said, there's a lot in there. I did see the cluster housing and stuff, but I really kind of focused in on the things that were in our affordable housing plan that might help us, but there's a lot there.
Do you think it's realistic if all of us had a copy of that and read it?
Well, I'm going to share. I wrote a note already to share it with you all. So
Okay.
I will share it with you. I think you should.
What?
It's hard to read, but
Yeah.
I think we should all familiarize ourselves with it, and we'll try to get some guidance.
Okay.
Shane?
What is the CCM council? What is that? Like, where did you go?
Connecticut
Did you go?
Conference of Municipalities.
Okay, and you was it?
It was this huge conference. It was at Mohegan Sun. There were hundreds of people there. I attended 3 workshops. At lunch, they were presenting the towns that received the Sustainable Connecticut certification designation. So just one of the workshops I attended, it was called, I don't know where I put it, Update on Affordable Housing and Land Use Legislation.
Gotcha. Cool. Thank you for bringing that back to us.
Sure.
Well, if you see anything like that, can you just inform us? So that maybe if we, wanted to attend something like that, we could do that? I mean.
Sure. So this one, in order to go to the conference, I think you have to work for the municipality. I don't know. It was kind of a steep registration fee. It was in person, but there are a fair number of things that are Zoom and that are free, and I will try to share them whenever I see them because they come through. Whether Desegregate CT is often
Yeah,
hosting
They do
some.
it. Yeah.
There's another group. A lot of them are on equity and diversity, but which is also really important. But I feel like we're really looking at some of the like how-tos on getting affordable housing built in our town.
Right.
Great.
At least that's what I've been focusing on because I'm trying to figure that all out.
Okay.
So I will share those.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all right. So on to the plan itself. Do you all have a copy of it or something?
Yep.
Do you have something, Woody?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm looking at page 11.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically those first 4 are things that, definitely come under that we need to be working on. Continue the Housing Commission's successful down payment assistance program, increasing the awareness of it. That's the publicity. If we get, have a budget for that, that'd be great. Working with the Steep Rock Association. Let's see, and then the next one, make residents aware of the option of subdividing a lot for affordable housing. And so a lot of this is communication. And
I'll be right back.
okay, a lot of it is, is basically communicating with the public and making people aware of what's available or what they could do. Encourage private giving of land. I pulled out something from I think it was the Litchfield magazine, that the Litchfield, where is it? Oh dear. Anyway, so this was something that the Litchfield Housing Trust had put out, and it had a full page ad in the Litchfield magazine about opening doors for families, strengthening a community, telling them what they do, and and also encouraging people to donate to it.
Right.
So I mean, that's something that we need to consider.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. I think the next 4 under encouraging development of downsizing options, those are basically zoning issues. Shane, you're on zoning, or
Yes, ma'am, I am. Yeah, I mean, I think, it's almost like I feel like some of these things we need somebody to come in and try to do it to a certain extent, in order to sort of figure out how to make the right adjustments to make it work. I don't know.
What do you mean by that, Shane? I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
not,
that implementation table that is an appendix pretty much says that.
Is that right? Where is that?
Yeah, I think Lindsay
Control.
just put that in the chat too. So
Yeah.
page 16 is, it shows who's in
Oh,
charge.
shit, there's stuff on the back. What?
It's
Yeah.
nice, it's like a snapshot of all the goals.
yeah, okay.
Right.
And who should be doing what? So the-
Right, which is interesting. If you look at goal 2, which the lead on that is really the zoning commission.
That's true.
But number 2 talks about allowing duplexes. Number 3 talks about amending the regs to allow townhouses. So both of those may be kind of addressed in this PA 21 through 29, or slightly or similar. So we might get a little bit of help and guidance from this act on those too.
That's a good point. But yes, I think you're right, Judy. I am in zoning. So yeah. Let
so just,
me.
you know, if you could be our liaison there and just kind of like.
Of course, absolutely. I would love to. 100%.
And Shane, I forgot also that you were an alternate on zoning, because when I was asking Shelley about like how to proceed, how is the work on this going to happen? Can we work together with planning and zoning and housing on some of this? She wasn't really sure. I mean, so we can kind of think about,
Yeah.
you're on all 3.
Yes, ma'am. I would love to. Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the point, is I thought I would maybe be able to at least share information more broadly, or to help remind people of things that they forget. You know, the first few meetings in the zoning have been a little bit little hectic, I think, in terms of trying to figure out how to navigate that particular committee.
It operates a little differently than the other 2 that you're on.
Mhm.
And you also have a couple of hot button issues you guys are addressing right now. So it may not be typical, but
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how I could help, and maybe this is a conversation we can have offline, just like how to breach those subjects with certain people.
I had a conversation with Janet Hill today, who said that she's leaning towards maybe wanting to join this committee.
Oh, I think she'd be great.
fantastic.
Yeah, she would be another person that would sort of be another, and she knows
Yes,
so much. I
right.
know so little, so she'd
Well,
be even more helpful.
And it would be, her expertise would be really helpful in crafting language, you know, as we look at
Yeah.
what, not just crafting the language, but the process, the procedure. You know, planning has not had a lot of success in suggesting changes to zoning regs. You know, they seem to always get shot down by zoning without a very collaborative process. You know, letters go this way, deliberation goes that way, but nobody,
I agree.
So maybe if Janet could help us.
Yeah, I would say the more
with
people
us.
that we can have on that front, the better, you know?
Yeah.
Can we reach out to Janet and see if she would like to join?
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. She would have been at this meeting if it had been hybrid.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just said she couldn't do it, you know.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, so, you know, even more reason to make sure that we're continuing to do that.
Yes. Okay, so then, then we go to goal 3. There's a couple there. The Housing Commission support the development of additional affordable rental units by the Washington Community Housing Trust, and assist the Washington Community Housing Trust to build its capacity and resources to address housing needs. So a lot of this is talking up the need and for change, basically, and making people aware of it. And then let's see, on the next one, under goal 4, is that we're promote energy efficiency programs offered by Eversource and others once per year through the town newsletter or other means. Okay, so I mean, a lot of our work is going to be promoting.
I think
Can I
promoting
ask
is
a question?
pushing. Yeah.
Sorry. So this made me think of this note about helping promote the Washington Community Housing Trust. They don't have a website, do they? I mean, if you Google them, nothing really comes up. So I wonder if that's something we could help with. Like, how do they connect with people? They must have a way. Is it all word of mouth?
It was word of mouth when I did it, when I first reached out to them.
That's a great point, Lindsay. I did reach out to Bill Fairbairn, and I've spoken with Ted Bent several times. I really feel like having somebody who's on the Housing Trust come to Housing Commission meeting, like we just need to establish some good communication with them and really figure out what their needs are, where they are at the moment. But I think if they can't get a web page together, maybe they could have, we could create a tab for them on the Housing Commission page, you know,
Okay.
that just as a, like a land, you know, a housing,
Wouldn't hurt.
a housing trust tab that just has, you know, contact information or something. Like we could,
Like a sub tab or something
Yeah.
like
yeah. I mean, it just,
Right.
I would put a link to their website, but like you said, they don't have one. They've been saying they were going to get one the whole time. I mean, Jocelyn kept reaching out. I talked to Anne Marie, who's the administrative person. She kept saying, oh yeah, we're working on it. So maybe in the meantime, we can just put something on our page that has contact info and like, you know, a blurb about them or something.
I would agree.
Right. And that you kind of touched on my other question, which was how do we interact with the Housing Trust? Because it seems like they right now have the capacity to do almost the most good of the few groups that are working on this. So how
Sure.
are we staying in touch with them? Or how is the Housing Commission staying in touch with them?
I think capacity, though, is an interesting word there, because I would say they have the ability, but I don't know that they have the capacity at the moment, which is, I think, why we're seeing, I think they're
They're
a
stalled.
little challenged at the moment.
Shell, who is
What?
Bill Fairburn and Ted Bent, you said, and who else?
Oh, I have the list of everyone on there. I don't remember. I can get it.
I mean, this sort of like this talking to these guys really seems like a smart thing to do, especially as we go into preparing our budgets. And I'm wondering if like there's any way to try to get them to communicate with us where they are with whatever they're working on and where do they see themselves going next year, so that when we put our budget together, we make sure we can account for that if possible.
Mhm.
I will commit to contacting Bill Fairburn, I guess.
Right. Well, I wonder if it's also them and also anybody else in town who's doing anything exciting like that.
Well, Housatonic Habitat would be another.
That's the
group.
other one. I was totally drew a blank on their name. It was
Yeah,
like,
and they have a new director, so it's not Fran.
Oh, exciting,
anymore, who
okay.
Fran retired, so it's Diana.
Okay.
So that might be someone else to connect with.
right. I think we should see where they are and where they're going and what we can do to help facilitate whatever it is they're working on, and have that reflected in our.
Okay, so is there somebody that's willing to contact somebody from Habitat between now and the
Yeah.
next meeting?
I will
Okay.
certainly do. I can do it. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm gonna contact
Habitat for check-in. Great. Because I think also knowing where we are in stock and where we are with their projects moving forward will also help us ascertain how much money or how many people we may be able to get into those homes, right? Like there's no point in asking for money if there's no homes around, right? You know, like, I don't know.
So
Or maybe that we need to like change our approach if that's, you know, if it's. if that makes
yeah.
sense.
So the last time I spoke, it was with Fran. So it would be great to meet with Diane, but the Habitat, you know, they were on hold because building prices were so high. But it would be, I think the Housing Commission could really work with that. She was interested in, you know, when they go to build the next one, getting
Right.
community involved on like the local build. They were still using all of their Danbury builder contract, people, because that was their network. But
Right.
they wanted to expand a network up here, but they're relatively new. So they just finished out that one build. So, and I feel like that's a place where the Housing Commission could certainly
Okay.
help,
That's a great idea.
promote
Yeah,
a
yeah.
community build day or do a little fundraising outreach kind of stuff. But
Excellent.
last I heard, they were on hold. So it'd be interesting to see what their thinking is, because that was probably like 5 or 6 months ago that I spoke to her.
Okay. May I reach out to you offline for her email address?
Yeah, I have it.
Thank you.
Okay, so of those first 4 things under goal 1, so under number 4, we're talking about connecting with the Washington Community Housing Trust and Housatonic Habitat for Humanity.
I'm working on
Go ahead.
the down payment assistance program because it's confusing. What's on our website just is a link directly to the housing development.
Yeah.
I have a meeting up with both the Lindas on Thursday because they are not happy with how it has been run. They think it's confusing. So, because people call them and so I'm going to work really hard on just outlining the process and getting the contact information together and updating that on the website. Once I feel like we've got a handle on how it works, then we can actually promote it. But I wouldn't want to promote it right now because it's just it's a link to a website with no process at all. So
Right.
so I'll work on that this month.
So are we, yeah, sorry, that's me. To backtrack a little bit, Judy, going back to number 1, and this sort of like subdivide a lot for affordable housing since 1955. I mean, could we just take that entire paragraph and put it in the Selectmen's newsletter with a big thing that said, "Did you know?" Like blah 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 blah. Like can we just try to drive some of that stuff home? It just seems like it would be an easy ask. And we can certainly keep tabs on it, but it would certainly, it would just feel like maybe we'd start pushing maybe some low-hanging fruit forward.
Judy, could I clarify one thing on that?
Yeah.
Shoot.
So as I understand it, I was a little confused by how this was being expressed. As I understand it, if you have a parcel that exists before planning and zoning, that you can get a free cut, which means that if you can support 2 building lots, okay, that you can get it without going through the subdivision process. I don't think it's specifically about an affordable lot. Now, having said that, if you have a existing lot that doesn't meet the density unit qualification standards of zoning, but it will support 2 houses as far as health is concerned, you could get a free cut as well. But I think that might require an 8-30G process. I'm not entirely sure about that. But anyway, thank you.
Along that point, Shane, I think I agree. Like we could put a note, hey, did you know, in the selectman's email? But I think we need to know what we're talking about first.
Yes, better.
Oh, you mean like
I don't want to
saying
send a whole bunch of people calling the selectman's office or land use saying, hey, what's that? Like, so I want to flush that out a little because if Chris is confused by it, then we're all going to be confused by it because he knows.
Well,
this
certainly.
well.
I didn't know he was confused by it. I guess my question would be: I wonder if it's worth putting in terms of our unit goal. Like ways to try to achieve that. Our 30 unit.
Well, that's a whole nother thing. Because a lot of what we're talking about right now, promoting, even some of the changing of the regs, is really just to pave the way for organic development. So I think, which is great, and it may result in affordable capital A housing, or it might result in some middle housing that's, you know, some multifamily or townhomes or something that are not quite capital A affordable, but still needed.
Right.
I do think, though, that the work with the Habitat and the Housing Trust is essential for that 30 unit.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, for
that's
sure.
where
Absolutely.
that's where
Yeah.
the capital A stuff is going to
Well, I
definitely.
guess in my imagination, like somebody had a whole bunch of land and they're like, oh, I want to build some apartments over here or something, you know, like some sort of like townhomes or something. Or of course, that's probably not ever going to happen. But that's sort of the story in my head was like, oh, you can get people to donate land. Who's going to donate it to Habitat or to the Washington Community Housing Trust. And that would be where they would sort of step in and then take it to those different affordable.
Right. Which
But you're
I
right,
think,
it's kind of abstract.
well, but so first we'll make a connection with them and sort of see where they are and what they need. But I agree,
Right.
you know, whether it's an article in the newsletter or, you know, getting some kind of other newspaper or some kind of promotion, it's like just putting it out there. Hey,
Right.
would you like to donate land to the housing trust? We really need affordable housing, and we
Right.
could use 10 acres. 15.
Yeah,
I don't know.
maybe. I mean, that right there is perfect. Just be like, hey, give us some land.
Well,
We don't need to
you know,
get
another
crazy
thing
about it.
I've thought personally is that while affordable housing has become, people are understanding more and more that, you know, our essential workers can't even live here. Like they're kind of getting it.
Right.
But senior housing is also,
That is
like,
also
everyone, like I don't hear anyone against senior housing. So I feel like that might be the way to get the first project through if it's designated senior. But I don't
That's
know.
a great
Yeah.
idea, Michelle.
Okay, but we're kind of going all over the place. For number
Sorry.
Sorry.
That's all right. For number 3, how are we going to find out? How are we going to flush that out? How are we going to know more about that? Is this something? Is this something? Right? I wasn't on the committee that developed this. Where did this come about? This is absolutely true that we can do that. That somebody can do this.
Yeah.
I think Wayne may have brought it to our attention.
Yeah.
So
that's-
Shane, as part of planning and zoning, I just think a little more detail,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
just explaining, you know, that if your property hasn't been subdivided since 1955, you can subdivide it. But maybe we can explain a little more, like, about acreage, if you've got this or that, or it needs to have this or that, and if you have questions, contact this person, and, you know, just let's add
Okay.
a little more detail before we just throw something out there like that.
You're probably right.
Tell me
You're
what-
totally right.
All right. So when it says public health code requirements, where do we find out what exactly those are?
Well, that's for septic.
Yeah,
So-
that's about the
Okay.
waste. Yeah.
And water.
And water, yeah.
Right.
And
I always
Chris,
forget
what do you mean by water, having enough water. Is
Yeah.
that
Fresh, clean water source.
To put
on the
another well.
property. Yeah.
Put another, all right, so it's a well and septic, okay,
Yeah.
all right. Good.
Okay. So that's
But
great. I will follow
Isn't
up with.
there a minimum acreage size unless you're going the 830G with affordable?
I thought it was 5, but
Two-
I could be
is it-
wrong.
Oh, I thought it was 2.
2?
Oh, no, Chris, do you know?
You know, Chris, you're
What
muted.
was the question?
Isn't there a minimum of 2 acres for a building lot, even if it's Class A soil?
The lot sizes are 2 acres, 3 acres, 4 acres, and 6 2/3, depending upon your soils. But if you have 2 acres of good soils, you can actually fit 3 wells and 3 septics and 3 houses on that. And I've done 6 houses on a 4-acre lot. So It's
But in
possible.
order to do that, you have to use 830G though, right? You have to use
That's
the
correct.
affordable.
That-
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
So
Well,
I
that-
think we should just say that you need to have at least 2 acres for Class A soil, or you can build affordable, like we should just explain that,
Okay.
not make people fish around for it.
So,
Right.
but if, just as an extreme, if you had a 1/4 acre in Washington Depot, so you had access to town water, you could probably put a house and a septic on a 1/4 acre.
Okay.
I mean, it's done in New Milford.
Yeah, it's possible.
Right. Okay. Okay, so I will do that.
So we have a number of things to do before the next meeting.
Mhm.
We're going to try and we'll try and get that information for the second week of January. Okay?
Yep.
Okay. Chris, you wanted to present your thing?
You guys have been meeting so long, and you've already touched on some of it, but I'll just give you a couple quick comments about it. And you did get it, Judy, so that's the first thing. And
I
I don't
did.
know if
And I did
anybody else has it.
I did forward it to Michelle and Woody and Shane, but I don't know if they got it because it was late today.
Okay, so I'll just, there's several points I was making. The first is that with the strategy of getting Steep Rock to sort of steer some of their donors towards housing, I think I've had several conversations with Steep Rock about that. And I don't think that's really a viable route. I mean, if they flat out turn something down, maybe that might happen, but most people go to Steep Rock because they want the easement, they think they're going to get it, and they certainly don't want affordable housing around them. But one of the interesting things is that we have a process where if somebody wants to ease land, they can go to the Conservation Commission. But we don't have a path within the town for somebody who wants to deed restrict some of their property for affordable housing to be able to do that. And there's an important distinction. One is that obviously you can donate land to the town and you can get your deduction. And a lot of people do it, not just for the housing, but for the deduction. And I've been sort of speaking to the selectmen about a way of having a deed restriction on a piece of land that basically would sort of steer it towards affordable housing or limit it to affordable housing or a mix of affordable and market housing. And so that, I think if the town created that path, that would be very helpful. And as I said, the Conservation Commission does it all the time as either a byproduct of a planning subdivision or just somebody, I've gone to them and gotten a deed restriction for property. So that was the first thing I mentioned. Second thing is that the town actually owns a piece of land, the Moore property in New Preston. And when we originally brought it to the town, it was with the hope that the town would look at sort of an overall plan review of New Preston and look at what they needed. Originally we thought that there could be a combination of affordable housing and a lot of open space, septic repair area, things like this, maybe some parking. It was purchased with open space money for $500,000, which immediately limited it to open space. David Miles told Mark Lyon told me that there was a way of sort of backing out of that in some way. And I mentioned it simply, and I gave this to the selectmen. There's an existing site plan for that property that shows 9 lots with 9 houses with 4-bedroom septics and some open space. And you could actually concentrate development on probably 6 acres and leave the remaining 24 in open space. I think that could be an opportunity for the commission to realize some additional senior housing and some small single family homes.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly, in terms of senior housing, that sounds.
Chris, can I ask a question? Because that is, I'm all in favor of that plan, and it is the largest piece of property the town owns. We own very little land, actually. I would be more, I think, and maybe the Housing Commission could get behind. I'm curious about the way around the open space. I think that's the key, the first key is who said that there might be a way around that?
So when Michelle, originally when I brought the town's attention to the land, it was available for $350. It was purchased by somebody because Owen just got impatient waiting for the town. That developer came up with all sorts of plans, and when he decided he couldn't really follow through, he brought it back to the town. The town used money from the Conservation Commission's Open Space Fund to purchase it because it was readily available. That instantly took the $500,000 purchase and turned it into open space. What I was told by Mark, because I approached him about that and said, listen, we've lost an opportunity here. And he spoke to David Miles, and what Mark came back to me and said was that there seemed to be a way, and as I understood it, it was basically restore some of the funds to the Conservation Commission for the portion of land that was to be developed. And then you could develop that area. I think
I don't
it is,
understand what you're saying, Chris.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying.
Well, it sounds like a spot that's right for meet some of our goals.
It's 30 acres of land, Judy, that because we purchased it with money that was the Conservation Commission's open space money, that
Right.
instantly limited it to nothing but open space.
Okay, so then you said something about giving back some of it to,
So what I understood from my conversations with Mark over the years, and he was speaking with David Miles, was there was probably a way of restoring the money to the Conservation Commission and
Oh.
replacing it with unencumbered town funds. That
Or
would-
affordable, or money from the Affordable Housing Fund.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what the path is, but the reality is that, historically, man has sought to turn lead into gold, and what we opted to do in that case was take $500,000 and turn it into basically undevelopable land.
What was that address, Chris?
It's, I want to say it's, wait a second, it's 108 New Milford Turnpike. It's the Moore property, and the Conservation Commission has been very active in eradicating the Phragmites. If you come down New Preston, Baldwin Hill, and you're at the light to go to New Preston, take a right, and on your left will be Schwab Road. And then right after that, you've got that sort of pond and the Phragmites, or maybe they're not there any longer. And there's a sloping meadow. And it's that land. It's 30 acres, and it touches on Flirtation Avenue. It used to have a power line going across it, but Eversource, I think, has basically discontinued that. And anyway, it's just, you have 30 acres. If you take a look at a map that Janet Hill put together of the New Preston Village Center, it's all these tiny little parcels. And then there's this, relatively speaking, huge.
It's like north of the old Boys and Girls Club, right? Or like
No. It's if you were driving through New Preston and you
Oh,
passed.
right. Yeah. I know what
It's
you're talking
right
about.
on
There wasn't-
202.
Wasn't
There's
there
a
any other? It's on a state road.
Yes.
Yeah, it's on 202, right there on the corner. I pulled in there the other day. I was looking at it because I was thinking about the property. How much of a fight do you think we'd get from the Conservation Commission?
Well, all I can say is if you were to talk to Margie Purnell, who used to be on the commission, and some of the original commissioners, they never wanted this piece of land. They were kind of backed into basically turning over their funds.
I remember I was at the town meeting that approved it, and there were a lot of people who were against it too, who didn't think it was great for open space. Well, didn't they think it was contaminated or something?
I think, you know, whenever you deal with farmland, there's always concern, and of course you had the Phragmites. By the way, just historically for me, you know, I was involved with 16 Church Street, and it was a surprising when we had such a generous gift, when we had such a great architect, Peter Talbot, when you know, we thought we had a great plan. It was surprising how much pushback against it there was from the neighbors. And at the end of the process, when the project had been completed, I ran into Margaret Cheney, who's lived her whole life over there. And I said, Margaret, now that it's done, what do you think? And she looked at me and she said, Chris, we don't want rentals. We want homes we can purchase. And it was Jonathan Woodruff who said, why don't you go talk to Owen? And all of a sudden, there's this piece of land, and he says, I'll sell it to the town for $350. We had a great meeting with all sorts of officials. Everybody was on board. Jack Field said, well, I think we better form a committee. And you know what happens with committees,
I
right?
do.
So, anyway, so that was, I went to Owen that night. I said, great interest. And he said, Chris, you know, I've waited long enough, and I got somebody who offered me $550. So he got $550, but that guy who did do all these site development plans showing a 9-lot subdivision failed in his efforts, and so came back to the town, and we bought it for $500,000.
Wow.
With open space money. So it's been in limbo. I think it's an opportunity.
So should somebody go to that committee and talk to them about that? Like the conservation committee? I mean, what is the next step? I mean, it sounds like a great idea. I mean, it seems like you and Michelle are both sort of have been percolating.
Oh,
So-
I would love it. I think we need to think about that a little bit more
Okay.
before we go to a conservation commission meeting publicly.
Yeah,
Well, I meant like, do we reach out to them via email or something?
Yeah, like we maybe need to get a few more people on board, get a little momentum. I'm not sure. I don't know what the path forward is on that.
The
Copy.
first thing I would suggest, and that this is part of the reason why I gave the site plan to the selectmen, I think it might be a good idea to actually confirm first whether indeed the funds could be swapped out so it is unencumbered. And if legally that could happen, then you've got a question of whether the town would want to financially be involved in something like that. And then you indeed do have to go to the Conservation Commission and say, look, you guys have put a lot of effort into this. Is there a way that we can work together to sort of realize, you know, some of our needs?
Yeah,
And I
well,
think it's a great location for some senior apartments, especially if you could get a right of way to walk into town to 9 Main and get a cup of coffee and a newspaper.
There you
I
go.
agree. I think probably the path forward first then would be with the Board of Selectmen, because if there's going to be any movement of money, it has to go to a town meeting. And you're not
Right.
going to have a town meeting if the Board of Selectmen don't support it.
Okay.
Actually, you're not going to really get anything done, I think, if the Board of Selectmen doesn't support it. Yeah,
Okay.
unless you have every other commission on board. If you had, you know, housing, conservation, planning, zoning, all beating down their door, maybe, but I don't see that happening. So I think Board of Selectmen is probably the right.
You have to be sure first that Mark wasn't telling me what I wanted to hear so he could, you know.
Okay. So, I mean, their next meeting, they have a meeting this week, right? Today's Tuesday?
No, they met last Thursday.
I could wait till the next, into the new year. It's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's not rush into this.
Christopher, how much of the land, I know it's over 30 acres. But the land right alongside of 202 is wet. And then there's a nice sort of middle area, but it's not very large. And then all of a sudden the land goes up and it's very rocky and steep. Presumably the senior housing, for instance, would be in that little middle area there. Do you have any idea how much land is actually buildable upon?
Well, the site development plan that the engineer put together for the previous owner, he had I think it was effectively a town road going to 9 building lots. And my guess would be he shows a third of the acreage protected as open space with the pond and everything. And then the 9 lots on the hillside, and then up, it gets flat up at the top. I mean, you've got an engineer who basically proposed one plan to the planning commission, and it was credible as far as health and driveways and things like that were concerned. It was just that there was no path for zoning to approve it. Or planning at the time. But in terms of health and accessibility, it was viable. I don't think you would want to do a plan like they did. I can't hear you, Robert, but I would think you could do a cluster of things, and I would put it at the top of the property, which is very level. So I think it's viable, but.
Well, then you'd need a curb cut into Flirtation. I would think I went to some of the hearings back then, and the neighbors pointed out how steep it is to get down in an automobile to 202 from up on the top level. And they really, they hammered away at that, as I remember. This is 10 years ago, wasn't it? Or I mean, what wasn't it?
I think it was, I think we're going back maybe 13 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all I can tell you is I'll send along the site development plan that the engineer prepared. I never thought that the access from Flirtation made any sense. Ultimately, I would love to have seen the town acquire one of the lots on Route 45 between New Preston and the lake. Would have been a great access, would have added some dimensions for more housing and a walkable path to the village of New Preston. But I mean, unfortunately, when somebody is a developer or a builder, they often know how these things work, and then you run into the neighbors who just feel viscerally that something's not good or not right, or they don't want to see it. And their concerns, sometimes valid concerns, usually aren't those of an engineer. So, I mean, also, if we try to do things that everybody approves of right off, we wouldn't have Myfield, we wouldn't have the Vincent property, we wouldn't have Dodge Farm, we would have no affordable housing in Washington. And I was with a planner recently, and we were in a group of 4 people that included an economic development commissioner or committee member. And we were told that Washington does not want affordable housing. So you have a lot of people that just don't care, don't believe,
I think the other vulnerability, just looking at other towns and people I've talked to, is that the town owns it. Whether, we can, Kent and some other neighboring towns have always stayed in the private sector, thinking that when the town owns it, people step up and say, well, then the town needs to vote on this. And then that really makes it very difficult to get to the finish line.
Yes, but I think that Michelle's point about senior housing and it being a point that we could maybe rally the troops around is a good one, and should certainly be a part of the consideration.
Attractive. I agree.
Well, we have a lot to think about, a lot to do today in our next meeting. Is
And
there
thank you
anything
for your
else?
time.
Oh, thank you, Chris.
Yep.
Thank you.
Is there anything else anybody wants to bring up? Okay. We'll do what we have to do between now and next meeting. So we're gonna have a motion to adjourn. Okay, second? All of us want to adjourn. Okay, we're done.
Yay. Have
Merry
a great
Christmas.
holiday,
Thank you so much,
everybody.
Jeff.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Take care.